So I want you to imagine, just for a second, holding a snow globe. And you've just shaken it as hard as you possibly can.
Right, just total absolute chaos.
Exactly. The artificial snow is just swirling violently, and that little miniature scene in the middle is completely obscured by this blinding white blizzard. Everything is just a chaotic blur.
You can't see a single detail in there.
No, you really can't. And now imagine feeling so desperate to fix that chaos that you try to actually reach your hand inside the glass.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to grab the individual flakes of snow out of the water.
Oh, wow. Or like trying to stir the water to force all the flakes to just settle down already.
Right. But, intuitively, that reaching into that water and stirring it around it's only going to make the storm worse, right?
Yeah, because it keeps all that particulate matter suspended in the fluid.
Yeah.
The very act of trying to force the settlement is actually the mechanism that prevents it from happening.
Exactly. And yet when we look at our own lives during a crisis, reaching into that swirling water is exactly what we try to do. And the reason we're starting here today is because we received a message from you. Yes, you, listening right now.
Mm-hmm. It was a really powerful message, actually.
It really was. It was just so incredibly honest. It simply said, my life is a mess right now. What should I do?
Just admitting that takes a really profound amount of self-awareness. So if you are sitting there right now feeling like you're completely surrounded by overwhelming chaos.
Like you're trapped inside that swirling snow globe.
Exactly. If that's where you are, we are dedicating this entire deep dive directly to you. Our mission today is to hopefully shine a gentle ray of light into that specific, really disorienting darkness.
Yes. And to find a way through this, we pulled a rather unconventional stack of sources for today. We aren't looking at generic productivity hacks or, quick fix self-help stuff.
Yeah.
No, definitely not. We are examining the actual foundational architecture of how to handle a human crisis. We're drawing a line from ancient Taoist philosophy straight through modern ecological systems thinking and right into behavioral psychology.
It's quite the journey, and we can really anchor this entire exploration in a single beautiful concept from chapter 15 of the ancient Chinese text, the Tao Te Ching.
Right, which presents this rhetorical question that cuts straight to the physics of our snow globe analogy. It asks, who can make the muddy water clear? Let it be still, and it will gradually become clear.
Let it be still. I just love that. So the fundamental premise we are building on today is that when your life feels like an absolute mess, forcing a major decision is actually the absolute worst, most destructive action you can take.
It really is. The sources refer to the internal state of a messy life as having a heart that is irritated and a mind that is chaotic.
Yeah, heart irritated, mind chaotic.
Right. And when you're operating from that baseline, the mud is just entirely clouding your judgment. Your perception of reality is totally distorted by fear, anxiety, and just this desperate need for relief.
Well, and we compound that internal distortion with a very, very modern external pressure, right? This conditioned belief that immediate action equals progress.
Oh, absolutely. We're completely wired for that.
We're taught that if there's a problem, you must move, you must intervene, you must do something right this second. But Zhuangzi, who is another foundational Taoist philosopher, introduces a counter approach to this modern panic.
And it's a fascinating approach. He calls it fasting the mind.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit, because when we think of fasting, we usually think of, restricting food. How do you actually fast a mind?
By radically restricting your cognitive and emotional intake. It's the deliberate practice of emptying the self so you can hear with the spirit rather than just the ears.
Hear with the spirit. That's a beautiful way to put it.
It means you step back from the relentless noise of your own anxieties, the unsolicited advice of friends, the endless loops of worst-case scenarios playing in your head on repeat. You have to create an internal vacuum.
Because you have to let the cognitive mud settle before you can even accurately identify what the actual problem is.
Exactly.
Okay, I understand the philosophy, but I have to admit, I struggle with this in practice. Let's really ground this in reality for a second.
Sure, let's do it.
If my life is literally falling apart, like say I'm facing a sudden financial crisis, or my landlord is threatening eviction, or my career just collapsed out of nowhere, doing nothing just feels deeply, deeply irresponsible.
Right, it feels like giving up.
Yeah. My landlord doesn't care about my muddy water. If I just sit there and fast my mind, I'm going to end up on the street.
Yeah.
So how is this not just an excuse for negligence or apathy?
I am so glad you asked that, because that tension you're highlighting is easily the most common and honestly the most dangerous misunderstanding of Taoist philosophy. Yes. The texts are absolutely not advocating for laziness or apathy. They demand a state called wu wei, which is frequently and very poorly translated as doing nothing.
Right. That's the translation you always hear.
But modern scholars clarify that wu wei actually means non-coercive action.
Non-coercive action.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Meaning you aren't, like, forcing an outcome against the natural grain of the situation.
Exactly. Think of a Chinese finger trap. It's that simple little cylinder woven from bamboo.
Oh, yeah, the classic toy.
Right. You put your index fingers in both ends, and your immediate panicked instinct when you feel trapped is to just yank your hands apart as hard as you can.
But the mechanical design of the trap means that the harder you pull, the tighter the bamboo constricts around your fingers.
Exactly. Your panicked action is the very thing locking you in. It's creating the trap.
Oh, wow. So your own force is what's hurting you.
Yes. Wu Wei is the realization that to escape the trap, you have to do the completely counterintuitive thing. You have to relax, start pulling, and actually push your fingers further inward.
Because that releases the tension in the bamboo and allows you to just slip free.
Right. And applying Wu Wei requires intense psychological effort. It takes massive internal strength to sit with your terror about that financial crisis and not act out impulsively.
I mean, it goes against every survival instinct we have.
It really does. But you actively choose to pause, allowing the panic to subside so that when you finally do take external action, like calling your landlord or restructuring your budget, that action is clear, precise, and aligned with reality.
Rather than just a frantic yank on the finger trap.
Exactly.
Okay, so if we do pull on the trap, like if we refuse to let the mud settle and we force a rush decision in the middle of our message, what actually happens?
Well, the texts go to a fascinating and actually surprisingly dark place to answer this. They look at Lao Tzu's theories on war and military strategy.
War? Really? That seems like a huge leap from personal messiness.
It sounds like it, but remember, Lao Tzu lived during the spring and autumn period in China, which was an era defined by just horrific, constant, fragmented warfare.
Oh, right. So his philosophy wasn't developed in, like, a peaceful, quiet monastery somewhere.
Not at all. It was forged in a highly volatile life-or-death environment. He was deeply pragmatic about conflict. The texts explicitly state that weapons are ominous instruments, and that any wise leader avoids conflict unless it is absolutely unavoidable.
Because he viewed war as a tragic failure of harmony, right? Not some glorious arena for heroes.
Exactly. And the way our sources apply this military strategy to internal psychology is just brilliant. They argue that when you are overwhelmed by a messy life, your rushed, panicky decisions actually become weapons.
Oh, I see. Because your vision is clouded by the stirred-up mud, you lose the ability to actually aim.
Yes. You end up deploying those weapons against yourself and the people around you. Trying to force a resolution out of sheer desperation, out of fear or, excessive desire, it violates the natural order of your life's ecosystem.
We see this all the time, don't we? When people are desperate to escape a messy phase, they just blow things up.
It completely self-sabotage.
Yeah. Like, they quit a totally salvageable job in a fiery email, or they send a deeply hurtful text to a partner just to win an argument. Or they make a drastic financial gamble just to feel some sense of movement.
They declare war on their own lives.
It's like trying to perform delicate surgery on yourself while sprinting down a rocky hill. You have to stop moving first.
That's a perfect analogy. And the Taoist texts use a phrase that translates to tranquility is best, which is actually a stark warning about the nature of those impulsive victories.
What do you mean?
Well, let's say you successfully burn that bridge. You quit the job, you end the relationship in a blaze of anger, and for a fleeting moment, you feel the relief of escaping that immediate discomfort.
Right, that initial rush of, well, I did something.
Exactly. But Lao Tzu argues that this is not something to celebrate. He states that a military victory should actually be observed with a funeral rite, not a parade, because of the tragic cost of lives.
Wow. Think about the gravity of that for a second. If you force a decision in your own life out of sheer panic, Lao Tzu is suggesting you should mourn the collateral damage you just caused.
Because the cost is just too high.
Yeah, you might have won the argument or escaped the immediate pressure, but the long-term damage to your mental health, your reputation, your future stability, it's a profound tragedy.
You've permanently scarred the landscape of your life just to relieve a temporary feeling of panic.
Which brings us to the core challenge, really. Once we accept that we need to stop fighting the finger trap, and we realize the danger of declaring war on our own lives, how do we physically stop?
That's the hardest part, isn't it?
It is. When the panic is literally surging in your chest and your life is a mess, how do you actually find stillness?
Well, chapter 8 of the Tao Te Ching introduces a very famous concept. It says, the highest form of goodness is like water.
Oh, I've heard this one. Water benefits all things without striving.
Yes. But the key characteristic here is that water naturally settles into the lowest places, the exact places that human beings despise and actively try to avoid.
Oh, that's so true. When your life is a mess, you are in that lowest place, and human nature just screams at us to climb out immediately, to scramble up the muddy banks.
But water just exists in that low place. It pools there, it gathers strength there, and it actually benefits from the shape of the terrain without striving against it.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because this ancient observation of water's behavior maps flawlessly onto modern systems thinking, which is covered in our sources today.
Yes, the research we reviewed bridges Taoism with the work of Donella Meadows. She was a pioneering environmental scientist and systems analyst.
And she spent her life mapping out how to intervene in complex systems, whether that's a global ecosystem, a corporate supply chain, or, the messy ecosystem of an individual human life.
And Meadows noted that the deepest, most profound way to change a failing system isn't by tweaking small parameters or just forcing new rules onto it.
Right. The ultimate intervention is what she called an invitation to let go into not knowing.
Which sounds completely terrifying when you are in the middle of a crisis.
Utterly terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, if my life is a mess, the one thing I crave above all else is certainty. I want to know exactly what steps to take to fix it right now.
Of course. But let's look at how Meadows would approach a failing ecosystem. Say, a dying lake that has been overtaken by a toxic algae bloom.
Okay, a dying lake.
If you approach that lake with the panicked need to, quote-unquote, fix it immediately, you might just spray massive amounts of algicide into the water.
Which kills the algae. Right, so problem solved.
But it's not solved. You kill the algae, but then the decaying plant matter depletes the oxygen in the water. That kills all the fish, which creates even more decay, and suddenly the entire ecosystem collapses permanently.
Wow. So the system fought back against your forced intervention.
Exactly. You pulled the finger trap.
Oh, man. That is such a vivid picture.
Meadows realized that before you can heal the lake, you have to fundamentally change your underlying paradigm, your core assumption that you are the master of the lake and can just engineer it into submission.
You have to step back, look at the rotting lake, and admit, I actually do not know how to fix this.
Yes. And in the context of a messy life, that admission changes your foundational source code. You shift from a paradigm of rigid control to a paradigm of profound humility.
You stop trying to force the current. You allow yourself to be like water, just resting in the low place.
And the Taoist texts have a very specific phrase for this operational state. It translates to, knowing when to stop avoids danger.
I look at that phrase through the lens of modern psychology as the ultimate form of psychological safety.
Psychological safety? How so?
Well, we hear a lot about psychological safety in corporate culture, right? The idea that you won't be punished by your boss for making a mistake. But we rarely, if ever, grant that kind of safety to ourselves.
Oh, that's a really good point. We are our own harshest critics.
Exactly. Knowing when to stop is giving yourself permission to just stop. It is the radical act of saying to yourself, my life is a mess. I do not have the answers today. I am not going to solve my life right now, and that is completely acceptable.
The relief that comes from that permission is incredible. And that relief is the exact mechanical trigger that allows the muddy water to actually begin clearing.
Because when you embrace not knowing, you remove that artificial, frantic timeline you've imposed on your own healing. You finally stop judging yourself for being lost.
You let the mud settle.
Okay, but philosophy is beautiful and metaphors are great. But eventually, the sun comes up, the alarm goes off, the emails are still piling up, and the structural mess of your life is just staring you in the face.
The reality of Tuesday morning.
Exactly. How does someone physically scale back their inputs and practice this stillness when modern life demands constant, unrelenting engagement?
Well, the ancient texts provide a behavioral blueprint for this too. It centers around an idiom, pingsanjingi.
Pingsanjingi.
Yes. It translates to cultivating a calm mind and tranquil energy. It means maintaining a peaceful heart and a cool head, regardless of how turbulent the external environment becomes.
And how do they suggest we achieve that?
The method is laid out as seeing simplicity, embracing rawness, reducing selfishness, and having few desires.
Okay, so in the context of someone staring at an overflowing inbox and a bank account that's totally in the red,
Mm.
What does seeing simplicity actually require them to do?
It requires a radical, ruthless reduction of your inputs. Think about it. When your life is a mess, your cognitive load is entirely maxed out. Your brain is processing the stress of your career or your relationship as if it were a physical threat.
Like a literal lion attack in the wild.
Exactly. Every single ounce of your mental bandwidth is being consumed by threat detection. And yet, what is our modern response to this sheer exhaustion? We consume more.
Oh, we absolutely do. We doom scroll on social media looking at how perfect everyone else's lives seem to be, which just makes us feel worse.
Right, or we obsessively research our problems on internet forums until 4 in the morning.
We poll a dozen different friends, gathering completely conflicting advice.
Mhm.
Or we try to implement like 5 different self-improvement routines all at once.
And by doing all of that, you are literally scooping up handfuls of dirt and throwing them directly into your own snow globe.
Oh, wow.
You are manufacturing additional turbulence. To find that tranquil energy, you have to sever the flow of unnecessary information. You have to stop trying to monitor or control the behavior of the people around you.
You just have to narrow your focus down to the absolute bare metal essentials of survival.
Yes. If you are listening to this right now, that means tonight. You do not need to figure out your 5-year career trajectory.
You don't need to resolve the underlying dynamics of your failing relationship before midnight.
Exactly. You just need to figure out what you are having for dinner. You just need to drink a glass of water.
You just need to take a shower and actually feel the temperature of the water on your skin.
And you need to focus purely on the physical mechanics of breathing.
Breathing, it always comes back to the breath, doesn't it?
It does, because the texts explicitly discuss the breath as the tangible evidence of the life force. It is the one biological rhythm that bridges the conscious and the subconscious.
You can't fast forward your breath.
And you can't hoard it either. Focusing on that simple, rhythmic exchange of air aligns your immediate consciousness with the natural order, what the ancients called the Tao.
It grounds you in the only reality that actually exists, which is the current physical moment.
And doing that shifts your perspective away from viewing your life as a failing battlefield. You begin to experience life as a harmonious, cyclical flow.
You start to realize that the mess you are in is just a season.
Exactly. Just as a harsh winter forces a forest to retreat, drop its leaves, and conserve energy beneath the soil, a chaotic period in your life is a biological and spiritual signal.
It is telling you to retreat, to lower your energy output, and to wait patiently for clarity to return on its own timeline.
If you are caught in a river rapid, fighting against the current doesn't get you to shore faster. It just exhausts your muscles and pretty much guarantees you get pulled under.
But if you roll onto your back, conserve your energy, and just keep your head above water, the physics of the river will eventually carry you out of the rapids.
Right, into a calm pool where you can safely swim to the bank. Ecological systems, behavioral science, and ancient philosophy all converge on this single truth. You cannot force a complex system into submission.
You have to observe it, respect its power, understand its rhythms, and intervene only gently with profound humility.
Absolutely.
So let's synthesize this entire journey for you. If your life is a mess, based on the deep dive we've taken through these sources today, we are handing you 3 distinct, actionable lifelines.
3 lifelines.
First, do not shake the muddy water. Whatever crisis you are facing, resist the overwhelming urge to fix it through frantic, immediate action. Stop pulling on the finger trap. Give yourself the psychological safety to just pause, let the mud settle.
Second, do not declare war on your own life. Recognize that your panicky, rushed decisions are ominous weapons. Avoid making major, irreversible choices, whether that's quitting, moving, or ending a relationship from a place of fear or exhaustion. Do not create collateral damage that your future self will have to mourn.
And third, embrace not knowing and flow like water.
Yeah.
You do not need to have all the answers today. Radically scale back your inputs. Turn off the noise of social media. Stop asking for advice. Focus on the sheer simplicity of your breath and allow yourself to rest in the low place without fighting gravity.
It's about surrender in the best possible way.
It is. We want to remind you that my life is a mess is not your identity. It is simply a temporary state of stirred up mud. The clarity you are so desperately seeking isn't some secret piece of advice you have to go out and discover. It is already intact right there inside of you.
It is just waiting patiently for you to stop moving, sit quietly, and let the water clear.
Beautifully said.
As we close today, I want to offer you one final thought to just sit with once the audio stops.
Please do.
We have spent all this time discussing how to survive the chaos by finding stillness. But consider a slightly different perspective on the mud itself. What if the chaos you are experiencing right now isn't an obstacle that has knocked you off your path?
Oh, yeah.
What if it is the exact turbulence required to force you to stop, sit down, and finally discover what your true path actually is?